both noticed that, when we look at people who are talented, we know that there's something called talent, but it manifests itself slightly differently depending on the industry and the sector. Mm-hmm. So a talented engineer might be a little bit different from a talented architect. Yeah. What's been your experience in that area?
Yeah, that's really true, because it's really about potential and the potential to do what. So if you want to predict potential, you really have to define specifically what you're looking at. Mm. So that's why we've developed that leadership profile with the HBTI, that we say this really specifically predicts success in senior leadership. So the importance of conscientiousness, but in managing ambiguity and complexity, that particular profile for that job has specific traits that are associated with success. Whereas we've seen really clear patterns, salespeople have really, really clear profiles of much higher competitiveness, because it's so much more about individual performance and individual competition than group, team, organizational success. And we do see a lot of those different profiles. I did some research in the nonprofit industry with senior leaders in the nonprofit industry, and they had on average lower competitiveness, but very high conscientiousness. And they were talking even more about how, even though their goal was the success of their organization and getting funding and all of that was really important, the overall strategic goal was not necessarily the same in a for-profit company. So you see some of those kind of variations.
And with salespeople, there's also the adjustment issue, isn't there?
Yeah.
That they get rejected the whole time. Everything's it's no, no, no. And if they suffer from the depression and anxiety which comes from being rejected, they can't do the job very well. So they need to be very competitive and pretty well adjusted.
Pretty well adjusted, because sometimes a bit of neuroticism in sales is good. Yeah. Because if you're too relaxed and not too worried about the sales, the actual sales position and the money, then sometimes that can be a bit less kind of conducive. So definitely higher adjustment, but sometimes moderately high compared to leaders where you want really, really high adjustment for them, because all of the stress is going to be put on them. It's interesting to see.
So many of our clients want this perfect profile of the salesperson, because if you can find this unusual individual who does well in sales, then you're really onto something. And we're getting there. I think we've got quite a good now profile of the very successful sales executive.
Yeah, in a few different industries too, because we did a large study a couple of years ago with brokers in finance industry, and they had very, very clear profiles too, of more competitiveness, higher risk approach, slightly lower conscientiousness sometimes, but a very distinct profile from leadership. Which leads to an interesting question: if that's your pool of potential talent, are there potential leaders in there? Because often these very distinct sales profiles don't always match up with a leadership profile.
Yes, and so can you be a very, very successful specialist without becoming a leader?
Yeah, and sometimes the most talented salesperson is not necessarily the best leader, and sometimes the reverse is also true.
Indeed.
Yeah.